This is lecture 7 from chapter 17, and these are the last two species interactions to talk about. So up to this point, all of the interactions that I've been talking about are kind of negative, right? Either one of the species dies, or the species both have to divide up the area in the competition. In the predator-prey, predation examples, somebody gets eaten. In parasitism, somebody gets fed on, but not all of the interactions are negative. So we're going to look at these last two, mutualism and commensalism. In these interactions, the interaction is either positive for both species or positive for one and not harmful for the other. So let's take a look first at mutualism. So mutualism is one of the non-negatives where, in this case, both species benefit. So both of the species get something good from this interaction. And this is actually a really common interaction, a really common co-evolution that we see between species. So what you're seeing here in the picture is we've got our honeybee, we've got our flower. So here, the benefit for the flower is going to get pollinated, and the benefit for the bee is going to get food. So both of them are getting something good out of this interaction. Nobody's getting harmed. I'm going to put up another video on ants showing you mutualism. Here are some other mutualisms. These ones are a little more interesting. One is pretty famous. Most of you probably recognize this from a Disney movie. And this is a mutualism. So in this case, the clownfish is getting protection from the anemone. And in a way, the anemone is getting some good stuff from the clownfish. There's two different things that we've seen happen from the clownfish being with the anemone. One is that it tricks other fish into thinking that the anemone is safe. And so other fish will come in and swim near it and then get stung, thinking it's a safe place to hang out. Also, people have observed clownfish actually feeding the anemone, so bringing food to it, and so that's another benefit. The other three pictures that are here are actually the same kind of relationship, and they're kind of interesting. So they're all mutualisms. So up here we've got a moray eel with a cleaner shrimp. Here we've got a grouper with a cleaner wrasse. And here we have got a crocodile, I believe. Yeah, that looks like a crocodile, with a cleaner bird. And you may be able to guess from their names what these organisms are doing. In fact, if you look closely over here at the grouper picture, that fish looks like he's stuck. Nope, he's got his head down the nostril of the fish. What's happening in these interactions is these cleaner organisms are going to actually go in and pick out things like, rotten food, parasites, anything like that, dead skin from the animal that might be harmful to that organism. And so in this case, the grouper, the eel, the crocodile, they get the benefit of getting that cleaning, kind of like us going to the dentist. And the organisms, the cleaner bird, the wrasse, and the shrimp get the benefit of getting food. In fact, this mutualism is so strong that out on reefs, where these guys are found, you will actually find fish lined up at cleaner stations to get these kinds of cleaner fish and cleaner shrimp to come out and clean this stuff off of them. These big fish are actually, and this eel, they're predators, but they will come up, they will sit, they will open their mouths, they will open their gill slits, and they will let these fish go just about everywhere, as you might be able to tell from the cleaner wrasse with his head in the nostril of the grouper. So mutualism is a great interaction. Again, like I said, very common where both species get something beneficial out of the relationship. Our last interaction is a commensalism interaction. This is where one species benefits from the interaction and the other one doesn't benefit, but it's not harmed in any way, at least no way that we can tell. And so you might be looking at this picture and going, well, I've seen that, and those birds pick insects and stuff off of the buffalo. Well, in this instance, this kind of bird does not. So the ones that you might be thinking about are what we call oxpecker birds, and there are little oxpecker birds that do that service. They will climb back here on the back of the buffalo, and they will pick off, insects and so forth to clean off the buffalo and other animals. However, that would be a mutualism. This guy right here, he is a freeloader. So this guy is a cattle egret, and what he is doing is hitching a ride. He is getting the protection of riding up on this buffalo, and he's getting a ride, literally. He's riding the buffalo around, sitting up here on his head. So here the egret is getting all of the benefit. The buffalo is getting nothing because that egret's not going to be picking any insects or anything off of him. He's not going to get harmed because it's no big deal for him to carry that little bird around. It's not going to attract predators or anything. So it's no harm, no foul for that bird to be sitting on his head. I mean, it might be a slight annoyance, but there's no major harm for that egret to be on the buffalo. Some other examples of commensalism relationships. Some of the best ones that we know are related to marine animals, and I've got a couple of them here. So these guys up here you may have seen if you've ever watched Shark Week. These are remora fish that are stuck to the shark. This one's getting ready to either pop on or just hopped off. This right here is a close-up picture of what the remora's head looks like. This is actually the top of the head. So this is the bottom of the fish down here. And this is basically a giant suction cup. And so this fish right here is upside down. So is this one. This one's the only one that's right side up. And what these guys do is they come up and suction cup their bodies onto a shark and ride around. They're like the cattle egret. They ride around, they hitch a ride on the shark. As far as we can tell, there's no harm for the shark for them having these little riders, riding around with them. We do know it's not a mutualistic relationship because if you've ever seen a shark eat, it gets messy. These guys, these little remoras, will actually pop off and feed when a shark feeds. But the shark will eat the remoras if they get in the way, and that's an indication to us that this is not a mutualistic relationship. These other guys that are in the picture down here, these are pilot fish, and they are basically hanging out in the basically the stream, the backstream of the shark. So a little bit of hitching a ride. More so, they are actually getting protection from hanging out around a shark. And so they are definitely getting the benefit here. The shark doesn't get any benefit from these guys hanging around. The only other example of a commensalistic relationship that I can think of off the top of my head that I don't have a picture here, unfortunately, is barnacles. If you've ever seen pictures of whales, those bumpy things that are usually like on their heads and tails, those are barnacles. They're related to insects and crustaceans. Those guys, as far as we can tell, don't harm the whales, and they get the benefit of, again, riding around on the animals and feeding while the animals are swimming, but the whale doesn't get anything for having the barnacles there, and they don't get harmed for having the barnacles there. So that finishes up chapter 17. That finishes up the new material for the final exam. and let me know if you have any questions.